Historical betrayals of a faith rarely announce themselves with sudden grand declarations. Instead, they begin as quiet, almost invisible concessions. In its earliest years, the Christian Church survived the harshest persecutions the Roman Empire could invent, but its greatest vulnerability would come in peacetime. As persecution faded, the desire for societal acceptance took its place. To gain political influence and the favor of the ruling class, the Church began to quietly relax its strict standards. Trading the humble simplicity of its origins for imperial approval created a fatal opening. Step by step, human ambition slowly replaced divine instruction. In the early 4th century, Emperor Constantine's nominal conversion brought the Church out of the shadows. Almost overnight, it shifted from a hunted minority to a favored state institution. Constantine recognized a political opportunity. To unite a heavily fractured Roman Empire, he intentionally blurred the boundaries between his pagan subjects and his new Christian allies. Ancient heathen doctrines, ceremonies, and superstitions did not disappear. They were simply rebranded. They were absorbed directly into the rituals of the professed followers of Christ. By cloaking these ancient traditions in a veneer of righteousness, the Church surrendered its original authority. Paganism, while appearing to be defeated, had actually conquered from within. By the 6th century, the Bishop of Rome was formally declared the head over the entire Church, stepping into the vacuum left by the collapsing empire to establish a permanent seat of power. For the next several hundred years, this authority was methodically expanded. By the 8th century, the Church utilized forged ancient decrees to argue that the Pope had always possessed supreme authority over all other bishops and secular rulers. This centuries-long climb reached a climax in the 11th century, when the German Emperor Henry IV dared to disregard a papal mandate. He was forced to stand bareheaded and barefoot in the freezing winter snow for 3 days, just to beg for the pontiff's pardon. But this vast earthly power rested on a fragile premise. To maintain a human-centric authority, the Church had to hide the original scriptural instructions that explicitly contradicted it. Looking closely at this ancient parchment, we see a text that was deliberately kept locked away from the common people. Absolute institutional power relied on absolute public ignorance, making the strict prohibition of the Bible an operational necessity. To fully integrate millions of new pagan converts, the papacy took its boldest step yet. This cleared the way for a lucrative, highly structured system of adoring icons and praying to saints. It systematically altered the foundational laws of the Ten Commandments to accommodate their familiar worship customs. The Second Commandment, which explicitly forbade bowing to carved images, was expunged entirely from the law of God. To preserve the number 10, they divided the final commandment, but they also tampered with the fourth. The biblical seventh-day Sabbath, originally established as a memorial to God as Creator, was gradually pressed down and discarded. In its place, they elevated a deeply rooted pagan festival. As shown in this stone relief with its sunburst halo, the ancient heathen reverence for the venerable day of the sun was smoothly transitioned into the Christian Sunday. By rewriting these core laws, the institution successfully established its own traditions as the supreme authority in the life of the believer. To tighten its grip on the credulous masses, the Church introduced another concept borrowed from pagan philosophy: the natural immortality of the soul. This laid the groundwork for purgatory, a terrifying realm of ongoing punishment. This formal Latin document reveals how the Church weaponized terror. They invented indulgences, offering citizens the ability to purchase the remission of sins. With an official decree, parishioners were taught the simple payment of coins could release deceased loved ones from tormenting flames. This highly bureaucratic transactional system stood in stark contrast to the original, now suppressed scriptures, which taught that forgiveness was a free gift, impossible to buy or earn. Monetizing spiritual terror successfully transformed a faith of liberation into an incredibly lucrative engine of psychological control. The logical conclusion of this total institutional control was violent enforcement. Through the Inquisition, the hierarchy demanded absolute conformity. punishing any deviation with the dungeon, the rack, or the flames. A profound moral and intellectual paralysis gripped Europe. Without the standard of divine law, secular and religious leaders practiced vice without restraint, bringing progress in learning and the arts to a dead halt. The exact moment the papacy reached the absolute zenith of its earthly power was precisely the deepest midnight of human history. When human tradition violently replaces divine instruction, the inevitable result is a society plunging headlong into fraud, unchecked greed, and civilizational decay. Yet throughout this darkness, a faithful remnant survived. Hidden away in secluded refuges like these isolated medieval ruins, a few fiercely protected the original manuscripts and refused to bow to human mandates. Against the combined might of emperors, popes, and inquisitors, they presented a simple shield, the enduring power of the original text. It is written, outlasted every worldly decree. Individual freedom from the darkest spiritual or political tyranny rested entirely on a firm, unyielding grasp of foundational truth. This history reflects the ancient prophecy of Hosea. The absolute destruction of a people does not begin when their cities fall. It begins the exact moment they agree to reject knowledge.